Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'll be breaking down our next matchup for UFC Fight Night 272. In this one, we have Azamat Bekoev taking on Tresean Gore. I think stylistically, this is a mirror matchup. Both fighters are kind of bulls who pressure their opponents, love to walk forward, and both guys who are very comfortable turning fights into brawls. I honestly think this is going to be a very fun fight. I will say I think the main event, Moicano versus Duncan, probably fight of the night. But if there's a fight that says there should be a finish in this one, it's definitely this fight. With that said, let's actually look at our two fighters. Starting with Tresean Gore. He's currently 5-4 as a professional, 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Gore lost, of his 5, Tresean Gore got knocked out by Cody Brundage, then went on a 2-fight win streak, submitting Josh Rem and Antonio Trocoli via guillotine. Now is on a 2-fight skid, getting knocked out bad by Marco Tulio, and then most recently got outstruck by Hidolfo Vieira, the grappler. Not exactly a good look for Tresean Gore. For Gore, he was an interesting fighter coming off the Ultimate Fighter season 29. I mean, had really devastating power, and even still now is a guy who has devastating power to him, right? I mean, if he lands, it has an effect on his opponents, but never really jumped the hump to possible prospect to legitimate contender. Granted, Gore doesn't have that many fights, right? He has 9 fights in total, most of those in the UFC, where he was supposed to fight Ryan Battle in the middleweight finale of Tough, but unfortunately got injured. Eventually did get that fight with Ryan Battle, lost that. Had, like I said, muddled performances, which includes the loss of Brundage. Seemingly got back on track, submitted Josh Rem. Granted, that win was 3.5 years ago, and it took him a while till he got back to the octagon. Finally did against Antonio Trocoli, submitted him, and then, like I said, now on this 2-fight skid. Now, looking at Azamat Bekoev, he's currently 20-4 as a professional, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. In UFC specifically, Bekoev is 2-1. Won his debut by smashing Zach Reese, then last May smashed Ryan Loder, and most recently, last October, lost to Yusri Balgorian. But granted, given last week how good Yusri has looked, that loss has not aged badly whatsoever for Bekoev. I will say, the gap in between MMA fights, it is staggering, right? 24-9, that is insane. Definitely experience versus I wouldn't say inexperience. That's not the right word, right? Because Gore has more UFC fights. He's fought, you could say, higher level competition than Bekoev. I don't think so, but still. But I mean, just the fact that Bekoev, who's almost as old as Tresean Gore, right? Bekoev's 30, Gore is 31. They're not that far apart in age. The fact that they have staggering amount of fights, one has so many more fights than the other, is kind of staggering. But with that said, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Azamat Bekoev, I would say of the two, he's definitely more well-rounded. Bekoev can strike, but more importantly, he also has wrestling he can lean on, the ability to mix phases, and just simply has more ways to win, right? Bekoev can knock you out. He can win via ground and pound, which is a bit different than just straight up knocking out his opponents. And he can submit you. Obviously, he has, I think, of the ratios of Bekoev's win, right? Of 20 wins, 1 second, 8 knockout, 8 submissions. So Bekoev has more ways to win if we're just talking about overall weapons than Tresean Gore. On the feet, Bekoev is aggressive and powerful. He's not overly technical, but effective for sure. Bekoev, he pressures, throws with intent, and is always looking to hurt his opponents. In a matchup like this, having that extra layer, like the ability to wrestle, is a big deal because it gives him an option if the striking not necessarily becomes too chaotic, but leans in more favor for Tresean Gore than it does Bekoev. Now, looking at Tresean Gore himself, Gore is also a pressure-heavy fighter. He's explosive, he hits hard for sure, and is always looking for the finish. When Gore lets his hands go, he's dangerous. but his game is more limited than Bekoev. He's primarily a striker, and while Gore can grapple, it's not of the same level as Azamat Bekoev. Really, Gore just has a really nice guillotine, specifically a standing guillotine. That's really it in terms of his grappling. He doesn't really use it that much, and he doesn't really have that much. Now, you also look at it. I think Bekoev is the strongest wrestler Gore has ever faced, right? He's faced grapplers before, like Adolfo Vieira, and you saw Vieira tried to take down Gore numerous times, failed every single time. Bekoev is a much bigger and much stronger wrestler than Adolfo Vieira. So the part of Tresean Gore's game that which is a big question mark is like his take. How does he take? How does Tresean Gore deal with being put on his back? Right, because that's a big thing. Like, say, he defended all the takedowns from Adolfo Vieira. That is impressive. But now he's taking on a wrestler who's much bigger and much stronger. So we interesting to see how Gore has to contend with that. Now, this is looking at it stylistically. This fight likely plays out in the pocket, as both of these fighters will look to walk forward, throw big shots, and impose their will on one another. But in these kinds of matchups, small edges matter. For example, Bekoev, he has more tools. He's slightly better in terms of durability, I believe, and the ability to change levels if needed. Gore is dangerous, for sure, but more one-dimensional in comparison. So plus there's a key difference here. The wrestling. The wrestling is the biggest X factor here. Because even if Bekoev doesn't rely on it heavily, just having the threat changes the fight. If Bekoev forces Gore to think more, react more, and potentially hesitate when throwing his strikes. And in a fight where both guys are swinging big, hesitation can be the big difference. So, looking at the final assessment, this is a close range, high risk fight. Both guys can land something big. Both of them are bulls who are going to rush forward at one another. But I think because Bekoev has extra layers to his game, just his wrestling and overall versatility, I think gives him the edge in this fight. And in a firefight, having more ways to win it usually matters. So for my official prediction, I'm going to go with Azamat Bekoev, and I'm going to pick him via knockout on this one. I think the pressure and power from both sides creates chaos early, but Bekoev's durability and slight edge in power allows him to land the bigger shot and get the finish here. So once again, I'm picking Azamat Bekoev, and I'm going to pick him via knockout in this one. But with that being said, that's been my breakdown of this matchup. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think's going to win. But until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. And remember, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. I'll see y'all next time.